Okay, so the next one is that because I felt curious about Rin's mother, that I was going to decide to go ahead and talk about the other side of my family and relationships to maybe enabling type of behaviors or um, drug alcohol history and how those things worked from the other side. It's only fair to do that. Um, and in my opinion, it is a fair thing to do that. It's part of a personal history that sheds light on the kind of life that I came from before I got here. Okay, so and there's some questions that I don't know the answers to that I'll be like, I wonder if. Well, I'm just putting in a question about something that I would would be curious about because of just not having the information. Okay, so my mother, my biological mother, she worked for a very long time up until she got cancer at her father's business. I think she started working there when she was in high school. Her father, my grandfather, said that she was his first employee. Okay, so what they did there was no, sir. What they did there was paperwork for the oil and gas industry, and it was like regulatory paperwork. Okay, so I worked there for a little while, and when when I was put in the position to stop it, guys, to sit in my mother's office and do writing checks and um, payroll and accounting and other things that she used to do. She didn't do the accounting, but I did the accounting because um, that was something that I had been trained to do. I knew how to do it. So um, let's see where I can start with this. Okay? She went through situations with her brothers at her job where she was in charge of giving them money, and she from I don't guess felt like it was a fair dynamic with the way the pay system was done between them. Her youngest brother made the most money, and then she might have made the lowest amount of money, and then her oldest brother made a middle amount of money, and then her father was the president of the company because he started the business. Okay, so my grandmother once told me that she was complaining that she didn't like the amount of money that she was allowed to pay herself because of what her father told her to do, because she felt like she did more work than everybody else. And my grandmother said that she told her that um, that why was she so concerned about it if her husband had a job that was giving her money also. And I was like, I don't know what to say about any of that, because I always was able to keep myself sort of separated from that being about myself. So that was one thing that kind of like made me question if she had some bitterness about that situation, about that, like being she was in a job I don't think that she was happy with. And so when, and this is me as an outsider, I did not know the inner workings of her mind. The other thing was that she had to go through with always being put in the position of giving one of her brothers extra money and knowing that he would go spend it on drugs and alcohol. And then she had to get in this system of getting him to pay back the money. And I think that she had to go through them embezzling money, and then they asked her to forge signatures, which that would be the client asking her to do that just because they didn't want to come into the office and sign like hundreds of pieces of paper, so they gave her permission to do it. So I just don't know how I feel about that. Still not something that is like a preferable thing, a business practice. So these things ate away at her. I think my mother never really talked much, but there's been comments made that she was upset about some things, and so that my question was like about allowing yourself to be expressive, because she like seemed to have been placed in a position where she was being overruled about her decision-making authority when she was bringing things up to her parents. And that might be a factor in some of the ways that I was raised. It's like I can look at these things from many perspectives, but it's like it's hard for me to, because I've analyzed these things so much. Like, okay, she also drank and had prescription medication, so there's that factor involved, and then the word off is in office, and so and also being agents of other people. So I kind of connect that all together in an integrated picture as to trying to figure out what exactly was the deeper meaning in all of that. And it is my opinion, or mostly my opinion, that because I read it, that cancer is something that is evil, and drugs and alcohol are definitely something in the category of evil. So that's my thing about taking good care of your body. That's part of the reason why another reason why I am very cautious about how I am treating myself or how I might treat anybody else, because and then it's also the reason why I'm very cautious about biting my tongue. Not necessarily, the idiom of biting your tongue. Keeping everything pent up inside of you so that you don't have to get in arguments with people. Okay? So, either she told me or my grandmother told me that she thought that she was so stressed out from working at the office and having to deal with what she had to do, and perhaps maybe even what she had to go through with me and other things that ate her up inside, was the reason why she got cancer. And so, like, I had to go through that also, as trying to accept blame for my own behavior in contributing to that. But then I had to come back and also analyze how she contributed to the way I developed. And it was not just a one-sided thing. So that's as honest as I can be about that when it comes to taking personal responsibility, because it could potentially eat me up inside to try and assume responsibility for someone getting cancer or getting sick, and thinking that everybody's trying to keep you away from them because you're the source of their reason for being upset or whatever. I had to change that mentality about myself. And I also still think that like it is super important to stay off of drugs and alcohol and keep yourself away from the doctor. Because there are so many things that with medication that your body can naturally do. So that's super important for my life going forward. Now, I did have questions about like if there were reasons why the outside world would introduce a young child to drugs or alcohol, and if it was because their family members were practicing those things and that was a way of the punishment reward system working within a family system, and that it's just like something that I was unaware of. That was another one of my questions. And how like I might like I considered if the choices that I decided to do might be able to lift a curse off of my own self, especially because I live in a house where I'm able to make the decisions what comes in here, what comes in here, and what comes in here, and what I put in my refrigerator or in my cabinets for food or anything like that. How I take care of myself, those kinds of things. Just regular self care type of things. Trying to keep yourself clean. So I've considered all of those ideas. Now, as far as like I don't know what else I should try and bring up here. But the factor of recognizing this is a proponent of the reason why one of the reasons why I'm doing what I want to do. Okay, so there are things that I want to know about being able to have a family that is a good household instead of a family that's marked with some kind of curse because of poor behavior. I want to know if that's possible. And I also want to know, I also know that this factor with personal boundaries and how I feel about being too inquisitive about people can, if I even have the opportunity, can make people standoffish. Okay? So if I flip that around, it's like people are, I'm not the only one who is protective of their personal space, is what I'm trying to say. That if I flip that around as if there is this possibility of a family being formed or a career being formed, any of those things, and I could take the perspective that other people also might have these feelings of shyness, or not even call it shyness, but just being very careful about stepping over the personal boundaries because they don't want their boundaries stepped over, or they don't want to make you feel interrogated or uncomfortable with their being inquisitive and wanting to know about you if you are someone they're welcoming into their world. Okay, so that's another reason why I'm talking about some of the past things and how my beliefs are, my values, which are changing, are transpiring. So if I thought of anybody wanting to know about me, then I can give them that opportunity without them feeling like they're putting themselves in a terribly awkward position of wanting to know more. And also it gives them an opportunity to try and imagine how they might want to try to get to know me or try to be around me if we're ever around each other in the same location. It's a considerate thing to do, because I know how strange it can feel to try and get to know somebody, and then, like, how much can you actually get to know somebody so you can understand, like, why they're making the choices they're making, or what shaped them into being the person that they are now, and how they might treat, if you were forming a family, how they might treat your grandchildren and things like that, or great grandchildren, however you want to talk about that. And it's like, it's completely natural, I think, for someone to want to know you, and be able to give them some better information directly from the horse's mouth. So I was considering that when I was thinking about Ren and Ren's family, because I need to be able to not, like, I can imagine, okay, I have this personality which is very sort of considerate and polite when I get around people, and there are some situations which you can't always be like that with, when it comes to a family circumstance. So I don't know if I can explain it any better than that, but as far as anyone saying that your explanations and your reasoning are not necessary for your audience, it is not considering an audience. It is considering not being a dictator, okay? If someone came in here and was like, why can't I do such and such? I have valid reasoning all laid out before that circumstance ever even would ever occur, about what I will and will not allow into my life. So we don't ever have to create those that guesswork. The other thing that I wanted to say is, I know it can look like I'm disorganized around here, but I am actually a very precise kind of person. I dabble around in a lot of different areas, but the main focus is that my soul work, or, my soul connection. But when it comes to precision, I guarantee you that things will turn out a lot better than they look. You could go back. Quit that, Bertha. You could go back and look at how I behaved, being given the responsibility of being in charge of the bookkeeping when I did work at my grandfather's business. It was so quit. It was so, the bookkeeping was about the invoice, the financial stuff was so messy that I went through. I had help with my friend, but mostly it was me. I went through all of it. Was like on a system called Wolfpack, which is another reason why I questioned why I ended up with a Wolfpack. Like, that really wasn't. But it's just like it entered my mind. Although it's like I did make the decision I wanted to keep these dogs, but which is insight to me about how difficult it is to be very particular to care for another body when you have a bunch of bodies, and then also be caring for everything else around you. It's like they're having to take care of themselves. For the most part, I just provide them with what they need. But anyway, so got off track there with this accounting thing. That is a little bit of evidence about the kind of person I am. I get very precise about things, whether that be electrical work, construction work, or whatever. It'll gnaw away at me because I want things to make sense. So when I saw that Wolfpack program was a mess, and that everybody did not, and this is going to really integrate with this conversation, did not, it was so confusing that only one person knew how to, which was my uncle, knew how to work the operating system, and also that he wasn't always available to take phone calls or to deal with people about it, that I was bothered by that, and so I took all of that information, organized it into the old stuff into notebooks, and then I re-entered all of the new information into QuickBooks, and then it was through the access, it was through a password on the internet, and so anybody, and then I might have gone through and taught everybody how to use it, and that way anybody who picked up the phone or had a question had access to the accounting system, and there were not arguments and people getting upset because somebody wasn't doing their job like they should. So I did all that myself, and I did not ever, like, I know that my this was another thing I wanted to point out, but that was precision, and my uncle used to answer the phone, and I overheard him talking to people about how I got extremely detailed with describing invoices, which I thought was a good thing. But when my brother came in there, he was not like detailed in the way that I was. It was like there couldn't be two of us doing the same thing. So, I mean, it's just like it was a temporary thing for me, but it tells you a lot about my personality. Okay? I may not start out having it all put together or be well put together when I initially start with ideas, and might seem to be scattered, but my insides here about the way I'm connecting and doing things the way I need to do make total sense to myself. It's just a process of getting better at it day by day. So with that being said, the other thing was, what was it? There was another point that I was going to say about this integration thing. God dang it. I should have kept talking about it whenever I was at that point. Okay. Oh, okay. Yes, I got it now. So with that thought of the QuickBooks and how everybody has access, I gave everybody access to the same information. It eliminated the disorderliness. And so this idea of there being a family system and having children and having people connected to us in these branching out sort of ways, and having provided this, I'm going to call it my book and my videos, that if I have made this available for like a group understanding, that nobody has to be picking up the phone and yelling at each other trying to understand somebody when it's available before it ever happens. And that's what the inspiration was about, thinking about that idea of what I did for QuickBooks. These are good decisions to explain your reasoning, to explain your history, to explain the way that you think about how you might want to raise a family, how you think different circumstances happened from your past which shaped you, and everything. And the final point was that it was not very long. I don't remember how much before that my grandmother asked me before she died if I would be a scapegoat, and I didn't even think about it, and I was like, yes. But I was thinking about that earlier, and I was like, there was one thing that Tony Robbins said at one point about blame. And he said that if you're going to try and blame your family for the bad things that happened in your life, then you need to consider about blaming them for the good things that happened in your life. Okay? So you can also take that perception into thinking about yourself. If you've blamed yourself for some of the things that you've done before, or if you want to call it taking responsibility for the things that you've done before in your past, then you can also take responsibility or blame, however you want to put the word, for the good things that have happened in your past, because it was not one or the other. There were so many good things that were about yourself which took you to a next level that got you out of where you were at. And so we need to think about that also. Okay? So there's the idea of how I thought about Ren's mother, and I thought about my mother, and tried to shine the light back upon myself. Okay? I have reasoning for every single tiny thing that I do, and I could probably talk about it for a really long time, but I don't know if that's the best idea. I will do some summaries day by day.